A road sign. That's where this whole thing started. Someone quietly, persistently pushing for a Buddhist temple in Ottawa to get a road sign. That single act of civic stubbornness has since grown into a parliamentary petition, a Royal Thai Embassy endorsement, and a shot at Canada becoming the first country on earth to officially dedicate an entire month to Buddhist heritage. Today, we're unpacking the Visita Sirin Leelaratna Continuum, who this person is, what Buddhist diplomacy actually looks like inside a Western multicultural democracy, and why the next move happens in the Canadian Parliament. My guest today knows this landscape deeply, so let's get right into it. When we say Buddhist diplomacy, what are we actually talking about?
So Buddhist diplomacy has a pretty precise definition now. It's not just monks being peaceful. A comparative study published in Frontiers in Political Science defines it as the deliberate use of Buddhist heritage, symbols, values, institutions, sacred sites, pilgrimage routes, monastic communities, and transnational religious networks by states and non-state actors alike to shape perceptions, build cultural influence, and pursue foreign policy objectives.
So it's strategic. It's not just spiritual.
Right, and the key word in that definition is non-state actors, because that's where it gets interesting.
A 2026 book from Bloomsbury called Figures of Buddhist Diplomacy in Modern Asia, edited by NUS professor Jack Mengtat Chia, makes this really compelling argument that Buddhist diplomacy often precedes formal state diplomacy. Individual monks, lay leaders, advocates, they forge the connections before governments even show up to the table. That reframes the whole thing. So the diplomat doesn't have to have a title.
Exactly. And that framing is almost a perfect description of Visita Sirin Leelaratna, a dual citizen of Canada and Sri Lanka, founder of the Buddhist Embassy Canada, and the central figure behind a decade-long push to get Buddhist heritage formally recognized in Canada. No government title, just sustained strategic advocacy.
Okay, so walk me through who this person actually is, because
The Buddhist Embassy Canada, as described in reporting from ilanka.ca, is essentially a civic advocacy organisation. It builds bridges between temples and city halls, between communities and the institutions that shape public life. Leelaratna founded it, and the framing is deliberate. Buddhism deserves a seat at the cultural table, not just a quiet corner of it.
And Leelaratna was also received at the Canadian High Commissioner's residence in Colombo. That's a pretty significant diplomatic signal.
It is. According to ilanka.ca, that meeting in Colombo served not just as recognition of personal achievements, but as a broader validation of the Sri Lankan diaspora's capacity to foster mutual understanding between nations. That's diplomatic language for, this person is doing real bridge-building work.
And Leelaratna also founded something called Sirin Eco Park in Badegama, Sri Lanka. So there's an entrepreneurial dimension here too, not just advocacy.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes this continuum interesting. It's not purely political or purely spiritual. It's heritage, entrepreneurship, and spiritual exchange all woven together. Hiru News reported that Leelaratna was recognized for a decade-long effort to strengthen Canada-Sri Lanka ties through all three of those threads simultaneously.
So let's talk about the actual mechanics of the campaign. How does a community-level initiative end up on the floor of the Canadian Parliament?
It starts local and builds outward. The first concrete milestone was the city of Ottawa officially proclaiming May 2026 as Buddhist Heritage Month, a proclamation issued by Ottawa Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. And according to the Island newspaper, that was the first time a Western capital city had ever officially proclaimed a Buddhist Heritage Month.
Wait, the first Western capital ever?
First Western capital ever. And that local proclamation gave the federal campaign real momentum. The next step was Petition E 6893 3,102 verified signatures from across Canada, formally tabled in the House of Commons on May 8, 2026, by MP Jenna Sudds, who represents the riding of Kanata-Carleton.
3,102 signatures. That's not a fringe movement.
And when MP Sudds presented it, she noted that more than 300,000 Canadians identify as Buddhists and highlighted their contributions to education, healthcare, interfaith engagement, and community development. So the petition wasn't framed as a niche cultural ask. It was framed as recognition of a community that's already deeply embedded in Canadian civic life.
300,000 Canadians. That's a real constituency.
And here's where the diplomatic dimension kicks in. The campaign didn't just have domestic support, it attracted international backing. Thailand's ambassador to Canada, Dharm Buntham, sent a goodwill message to the virtual Buddhist summit on May 9, praising Buddhist communities for promoting harmony, inclusivity, and mutual respect across Canadian society. Because for Thailand, Buddhism isn't just religion, it's national identity and soft power. According to ilanka.ca, Thailand views the recognition of Buddhist heritage in Canada as a bridge-building exercise. By supporting the Sri Lankan diaspora and other Buddhist communities in Canada, the Thai mission in Ottawa is reinforcing values it wants associated with Buddhism globally: peace, mindfulness, social service.
So Thailand gets to be part of a global first without having to do the heavy lifting domestically.
Exactly. And that's actually a pattern in Buddhist diplomacy more broadly. Writing in The Diplomat in August 2026, NUS professor Jack Mengtat Chia points out that smaller states, Bhutan, Singapore, have learned to cultivate influence through cultural networks and regional cooperation, precisely because they lack the geopolitical weight of China or India. The Canadian case is a version of that logic, just operating in a diaspora context rather than a state-to-state one.
Let's talk about that global context for a second, because Buddhist diplomacy isn't just happening in Ottawa.
As soft power. The most striking example is the 350-meter Lotus Tower in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Former US diplomat Patrick Mendis described it as a narrative for Beijing to formulate a sustainable and peaceful soft power strategy that would appeal globally.
A 350-meter tower as a diplomatic statement. That's not subtle.
Not at all. And China also offered Nepal $3 billion for the right to develop Lumbini, the town where the historical Buddha was born, which the McGill piece notes is not so subtly linked to the Belt and Road Initiative. Buddhism and infrastructure investment packaged together.
So on one end you have China spending billions on Buddhist soft power, and on the other end you have a diaspora advocate in Ottawa getting a road sign recognized. The scale is wildly different.
But here's what's interesting. The direction of travel is completely different too. China and India are projecting Buddhist influence outward from Buddhist majority states. What Leelaratna is doing is pulling recognition inward into a Western multicultural democracy. That's a fundamentally new model. The diaspora community isn't asking a Buddhist state to represent them. They're building the case themselves from inside a non-Buddhist country. Buddhist diplomacy is a tool, not a guarantee.
What's the realistic ceiling for what Leelaratna's movement can achieve?
It's about cultural legitimacy and belonging within a multicultural democracy. Will Canada formally acknowledge that 300,000 of its citizens have a heritage worth recognizing? That's a much more achievable bar.
And the community clearly feels the weight of it. At the virtual Buddhist Summit on May 9, Toronto-based community member Manjula Wickramaratne said, and I want to quote this directly, "This is not just a petition, it is a movement built on years of sacrifice and unwavering commitment. Visita Sirin Leelaratna has achieved what many believed was impossible by bringing Buddhist heritage to the floor of the Canadian Parliament."
That quote hits differently when you know it started with a road sign. The Buddhist Embassy Canada's own documentary framing captures it well. The description of their One Bridge at a Time video says it follows engaged Buddhism carried into the civic square through advocacy, cultural diplomacy, and the belief that Buddhism deserves a seat at the cultural table. One act of recognition at a time. That's the methodology.
And there's another dimension to this movement that I think is genuinely underreported, the Bhikkhunīs initiative. Can you explain what that is and why it matters?
So in June 2026, Hiru News reported that the Buddhist Embassy Canada, under Leelaratna's leadership, unveiled a historic national vision to establish a fully recognized Bhikkhunīs in Canada, with the long-term goal of nurturing hundreds of fully ordained bhikkhunīs by 2050. Bhikkhunīs are fully ordained Buddhist nuns.
So this is about women's monastic leadership.
Exactly. And the historical lineage it's rooted in is extraordinary. In 429 CE, a Sri Lankan bhikkhuna named Devasārā Therī led a pioneering delegation to Nanjing, enabling the valid transmission of the bhikkhuna ordination and the ordination of more than 300 Chinese bhikkhunīs by 434 CE. Canada's initiative is planning a 2034 commemoration to mark 1,600 years since that historic milestone.
Wait, so a 5th century Sri Lankan nun's journey to China is the historical anchor for a 21st century Canadian initiative?
That's exactly the continuum the name refers to. It's not just about Leelaratna personally, it's about a thread of Buddhist transmission and advocacy that runs from 429 CE through to a parliamentary petition in Ottawa in 2026. The initiative also acknowledges the late Dr. Siripala Leelaratna, whose scholarly contributions continue to support global Buddhist education, So there's a generational dimension too.
That's a remarkable framing. It makes the whole thing feel less like a modern advocacy campaign and more like a continuation of something ancient.
And that's precisely how the Bloomsbury book frames individual Buddhist diplomats historically. Professor Chia's chapter on Hong Chun examines Buddhist figures who forged alliances and channels of communication, even when formal diplomatic relations were weak or non-existent, through pilgrimages, missionary activity, and educational exchanges. Devasārā Therī in 429 CE was doing exactly that. Leelaratna in 2026 is doing exactly that.
The methodology hasn't changed that much in 1,600 years.
The tools have. You can now run a virtual Buddhist summit and get a Thai ambassador's goodwill message delivered digitally. But the underlying logic of building trust through shared values and persistent presence, that's ancient.
Let me push on something though. The summit theme was Wisdom in Motion, Buddhist Heritage, Global Unity, and the AI Frontier. That's a pretty ambitious framing. What does AI have to do with any of this?
According to Hiru News, Leelaratna addressed this directly at the summit, reaffirming that Buddhist values like compassion, mindfulness, and ethical living remain essential guides in an increasingly technology-driven world. It's less about AI as a tool and more about positioning Buddhist ethics as a framework for navigating technological change, which is actually a pretty savvy move. It makes the heritage claim feel contemporary, not nostalgic.
So it's not just remember our past, it's our values are relevant to your future.
Exactly. And that's a much stronger pitch to a multicultural democracy than pure heritage preservation. It's saying Buddhist communities aren't just a historical footnote in Canada, they're active contributors to how Canada navigates what comes next.
And the Canadian Journal of Buddhist Studies, which is a peer-reviewed academic journal, is part of this broader ecosystem too, right? There's scholarly infrastructure supporting this.
Right. The Canadian Journal of Buddhist Studies is an open-access, peer-reviewed publication that explicitly names the Canadian context as a key concern, covering everything from textual analysis to contemporary Buddhist communities dealing with demographic transformation and cultural hybridity. So there's academic legitimacy being built alongside the civic advocacy.
Academic journals, parliamentary petitions, Thai ambassadors, 1,600-year-old historical lineages. This is a genuinely multi-layered campaign.
And that layering is probably why it's gotten as far as it has. Any single thread, just the petition, just the diplomatic support, just the historical argument, might not be enough. But woven together, they create something that's hard to dismiss.
Let me bring in the global picture one more time, because I think it sharpens what's at stake. You mentioned Bhutan earlier. How does Bhutan's approach to Buddhist diplomacy compare to what's happening in Canada?
Bhutan is the world's only official Vajrayana Buddhist kingdom, and according to the diplomat piece by Chia, it's placed Buddhist values at the heart of both domestic governance and international engagement. The fourth king developed gross national happiness not just as a development metric, but as a strategy for reconciling modernization with Buddhist cultural identity. For a small state between India and China, that cultural distinctiveness became a means of safeguarding sovereignty.
So Bhutan turned its Buddhist identity into a geopolitical shield.
Essentially. And Singapore did something different. It leveraged Buddhist networks for regional cooperation and cultural influence without making Buddhism a state identity. The diplomat piece notes that a Singaporean monk was once honored by a Thai king as supreme Chinese monk. Two different Buddhist traditions, one diplomatic gesture. That's soft power operating through religious networks.
And Canada's version is neither of those. It's not a Buddhist state projecting outward, and it's not a small state using Buddhism for geopolitical cover. It's a diaspora community inside a pluralist democracy asking for formal recognition.
Which is genuinely new. And if Parliament adopts this, Canada would become the first country in the world to officially dedicate an entire month to Buddhist heritage. That's not a small thing. It would set a precedent that other Western democracies with significant Buddhist diaspora populations would have to reckon with.
So Ottawa becomes the unlikely global benchmark.
Ottawa, which already made history as the first Western capital to officially proclaim a Buddhist Heritage Month at the municipal level. The Dharma Chakra road sign that was first introduced in Ottawa in 2012, that small, persistent act that started this whole thing, turns out to have been the first domino.
That road sign keeps coming back. It's almost a perfect metaphor. You mark the path, and then people start walking it.
And the Hiru News report on the Bhikkhunīs Susana initiative captures the symbolic weight of that. When Leelaratna met with the Canadian High Commissioner in Colombo, They exchanged a traditional Ambalangada Deva mask and a framed Dharma Chakra road sign. That road sign travelled from Ottawa to Colombo as a diplomatic artifact. That's how much meaning got loaded onto something that started as a municipal request.
A road sign as a diplomatic artifact. That's the kind of detail that makes this story feel real.
It's also a reminder that the Bloomsbury book's central argument holds up in practice. Buddhist diplomacy operates through shared religious values, transnational networks, and moral authority, not through billion-dollar infrastructure projects. A road sign, a petition, a summit, a parliamentary tabling. That's the toolkit.
So when you step back from all of this, the 1,600-year lineage, the Ottawa Proclamation, the Thai ambassador's message, the 3,102 signatures, the Bhikkhunā Susana vision, what does this really come down to?
It comes down to a question that the Bloomsbury book asks directly: who gets to be a diplomat? But the evidence from Buddhist history, and from what's happening in Canada right now, is that the real connective tissue between cultures is often built by individuals who operate in the space where religion, culture, and politics intersect. Leelaratna is a textbook example of that.
And the stakes aren't abstract. If Canada passes this, 300,000 Canadians get formal acknowledgement that their heritage is part of the national story. Not a footnote, not a niche, but a recognized pillar of Canadian identity.
And the global Buddhist community gets something it's never had before: a Western democracy setting the precedent. That changes the conversation everywhere. It's not just about Canada.
Here's what I keep coming back to, though. The Thailand-Cambodia border war is a real counterweight to all of this optimism. Buddhist diplomacy has genuine limits. Does that complicate the narrative around what Leelaratna is building?
I think it actually clarifies it. The Inside ASEAN analysis by Jonathan Goh says you have to hold both things true simultaneously: Buddhism being promoted as an instrument of peaceable statecraft, and two Buddhist nations going to war. The honest conclusion is that Buddhist diplomacy is a real and useful tool, but it's not a substitute for political will or conflict resolution. What Leelaratna is doing doesn't claim to be that. It's cultural recognition, not conflict prevention.
Different tool, different job.
Exactly. And within its actual scope, building belonging, securing cultural legitimacy, creating institutional recognition for a diaspora community, the evidence suggests it's working. Ottawa proclaimed it, Parliament received it, Thailand endorsed it, the Canadian Bhikkhunī Council is being built. That's a lot of movement for something that started with a road sign.
So here's what this really comes down to for anyone listening. We've been talking about Buddhist diplomacy as if it's this abstract geopolitical concept. China's Lotus Tower, Bhutan's gross national happiness, Singapore's monastic networks. But the Canadian version is something you can actually touch. It's a petition you could have signed. It's a proclamation your city could make. It's a heritage month that could show up on your calendar.
And that accessibility is part of what makes it powerful. The virtual Buddhist Summit's theme, Wisdom in Motion, Buddhist Heritage, Global Unity, and the AI Frontier, is ambitious, but the ground-level work is deeply practical. Get the road sign, get the proclamation, get the petition to Parliament, build the council. Each step is concrete and verifiable.
And the 2034 commemoration, marking 1,600 years since Devasārā Therī's delegation to Nanjing, gives the whole movement a long horizon. This isn't a campaign that ends with a parliamentary vote. It's a continuum, as the name suggests.
That's the most important word in the whole story. Continuum. It's not a moment, it's a thread. From 429 CE to 2026 to 2034 to 2050. The Bhikkhunā Susana vision aims to have hundreds of fully ordained bhikkhunis in Canada by 2050. That's a 24-year project being announced now. That's institutional thinking, not just advocacy.
And it's worth noting that the late Dr. Siripala Leelaratna, whose scholarly work is acknowledged in the Bhikkhuna Initiative, represents that generational continuity. This isn't one person's project, it's a lineage of commitment.
Which is exactly what the Bloomsbury book documents in historical Buddhist diplomacy. Individuals who created enduring connections through pilgrimages, educational exchanges, and persistent presence. The methods scale across centuries because the underlying logic is sound, shared values, sustained relationships, moral authority. Those don't expire.
So the next time someone tells you that diplomacy is just what governments do in formal settings, you can point to a road sign in Ottawa that became a diplomatic artifact in Colombo,